Hello, it's Deborah from the attic. Welcome to the second part of our series exploring inspiration. If you swap out the word inspiration and replace it with the word interest, I think you might start to begin to find ways to use the things that you are interested in to give you an anchor for how you could create your own interesting project. In each of the little videos in this series, there are 4 altogether, in each of these I'm showing you how I've used background words, which I've printed out myself, and some extra little highlighted words to act as the basis for developing my own cards or tags or little pamphlets and booklets. This time I'm going to show you how I used flowers, my interest in flowers, as my inspiration to create a flower-based card. I'm going to show you pretty much how I made this card. The only difference is I'm going to swap out the stamp. I used a single stamp to create this card, and this time I'm going to show you a way that you can use die-cut flowers if you happen to have die-cut flowers. And I have these are thinlits, these are from Tim Holtz, and these ones are called, I think they're just called 661808. I've had these for quite a little while and I wanted to use these, but I also wanted to show you that this is a template. You don't have to do this card exactly the same way as I've done it, because you want to make the things that are generated by your interest, but also maybe using things that you have in your CraftStash. This is a stamp that I used to create these. Again, this is very old. I don't even know if it's still available. It's called Blush. It's by Penny Black. The number on this is 2666K. I've had it for years and years and years, and again, it's something that I wanted to use. Because I only had that one flower stamp, I used it 3 times, but I used it with different ink, a different colour of ink, and I used it at a slightly different angle. So taking this as my template, I'll show you how we can use the background words. And again, these are words that you can print out for yourself. You don't have to use these ones. I'm going to make these available on Etsy, but of course, if you want to print out your own words with your own, generated by your own interest, do it, because it's very, very easy. All I've done is I've taken a selection of names of flowers, so Gerberis stocks, violet, lavender, hydrangea. I've put them into a Word document, I've typed them all out, I've put them into a nice font that I like. I've made the font background grey because grey mixes well with absolutely any colour you throw at it. And then at the bottom, in black colour, I've added extra little words I can use to make up my own phrases, as I have with this card here, where I've taken the word uplifting and I've added it to my card. So let me show you how I did this background, because I've taken 3 strips of the background paper and I've used 2 inks to ink this up. I'll show you how I did it. I'm going to begin by removing these bottom words. I could use scissors, but because I'm going to use my ruler to give me a rough edge as here, I may as well use it for this bit too. So I want an edge that is nicely roughed up, like that. The next edge doesn't matter as much, but I do need to make sure that it will be deep enough that it can be overlapped by the middle section. I'll show you what I mean. That should do it. And then the middle section, as in our template here, needs to overlap this, which that will do. So I'll take away this edge. It's only the right hand edge that matters in terms of roughening up that piece. And then I have a final edge. So these will layer up on each other in that sort of a styly, and that will be wide enough to just cover a grey card. I'm using a grey background because it will go nicely with my grey colour of text. I'm going to be inking up the right hand sides of each of my strips of paper, but because I don't want to do more inking than is necessary, I'm going to very, very roughly cut the top off where I don't need to do any inking. So from about this level here, and then I'm left with slightly more than I need. It will slightly go over the top of my grey card, but that's okay because I can cut off the excess once we're finished. I'm going to start with this one here. I used two different colours of ink. So I used Victorian Velvet, this is a Distress Oxide, on this edge and on this edge, and I used the Festive Berries on the middle edge. And it just creates a little bit of extra interest and colour. You could use a foam dabber if you want. I like using a dry baby wipe because it gives me greater control over this edge. I can get nice colour here, but it will be lovely and soft, and because we're talking about flowers, that felt more appropriate. So all I do is drag it over the edge. So that's the first one done. I'm going to add a tiny little bit more, and then I'm going to do the next two in exactly the same way. All of my edges have been inked up, and I've got the grey card that I want to use as my base. The way we're going to add these is one at a time. I'm going to begin with the piece that is on the extreme right of my card, and I'm letting this go over the edge top and bottom because I know I want to cut this off so this has a hard edge, as in this example. So then I'm going to take my middle piece, which is this piece. I'm probably going to put that slightly to the left of the centre. This is going to be my final piece, and my final piece is going to have a hard edge as well, so I need to know where on this edge I'm going to cut it, and so that's why the positioning of this piece will help me with the positioning of my final piece. So I think my middle piece will go about here, and just to help me I'm going to add a pencil line just under where I want the top piece to go, or where I want the right hand edge to butt up to. With my final piece, this piece, I'm not going to glue it down because it's going to have some 3D added to it so that it stands out ever so slightly from the other pieces. That will allow us space to put some thread around it. So to get that right, first thing I need to do is take away this edge. So let's just check just really where the lettering ends. And to make sure I get it straight, I'm going to use my little guillotine. This piece will be added so that I have a line of grey there. So that is pretty much where I want it to go. I'm going to take a piece of repositionable tape and I'm going to add a little line, and I'm going to glue this into position. And now that they're all in the right places, I'm going to go back to my guillotine and I'm going to cut those edges off. I've taken my thinlits and I've cut some 3 flowers, and I've cut them from red and pink and red again. What I'm going to do is I'm going to position these so that they pop out probably like that. We're using this as our template, but it doesn't mean we have to follow it slavishly. And this edge sticks out a little bit more than I like, so I'm going to adapt my flower ever so slightly with a little cut. By doing that, by varying the angles and by having them at different heights, you just make it a little bit more interesting, maybe a tiny bit higher. I've glued down all of my flowers and I've cut a piece of craft foam. This is brilliant to use in place of foam pads, you know, the ones that are sticky on both sides, because you can cut it to exactly the right size you want for your project. I'm going to put this onto the back of this piece, my far left little piece, my panel, and I'm going to work out where I want to tie the thread. So I think probably somewhere about here. So let's just make a little note about there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out a little channel, just small enough that I can feed my string through it without adding bulk to the front, and I'll show you what I mean. I will thread through my bit of string. That's probably about right. Now that I've got my thread on here, I can put glue on the reverse and stick it down. You can see how we've used this as a template, but we've made a very different card because we've used dies instead of a stamp, and the card will be different. If you have some lovely other flower stamps, then the card will be different again. I've got my words, which I've cut from the bottom of my printed sheet, and I think I'm going to use Cheerful Bouquet. These words are all spaced in such a way that they allow you to cut between each one so that you can have exactly the phrase that you want. Here's my grey pen, and I'm just going to draw around. Can you see that edge that I'm putting onto it? I'm going to add a little line of glue, and I'm going to, unusually for me, I'm going to try and put these straight. They don't need to be at an angle. And that's a happy card, I think. That was the original, that was where we started from. This is a clear shimmer pen, give it a little shake. And I'm going to do it a little bit on these, just on the tops of these flowers. And maybe you can see that shimmering. There, you can see it, can't you? The other thing that I added to my original card were two sets of Nuvo drops. So the ones that I have here are Caramel Latte, and these ones are called Red Berry. And they just went along the top and the bottom. So that's our second card finished, and I think that's rather pretty. I like that with the shimmer from the shimmer pen, and I also like the way that the bottom of the flower stems appear to sort of meet in the middle. So I hope you see how starting with an idea can generate other ideas or other ways of doing things, and I'm deliberately not being prescriptive about providing links to dies and stamps that I've used, because I really want this to be a launch pad for you to use what you have, because that's the other thing. If you have an interest in a particular thing like flowers, or like in the previous video dogs, the chances are that you gravitate towards craft products that that support your interests. So I'm hoping that the information that I provided through the video is enough for you to get a spark of an idea of your own. And I hope that you will join me for part 3, and until we meet again, take care.